The girl was running. Her blonde hair flowed behind her as she moved quickly through the tall, glowing trees. Her gray, fancy dress caught on a branch, and she yanked it free without stopping. Her heart was pounding, but she didn't look back. Not far behind her, a boy in gray armor was chasing her, not with anger, but with worry in his eyes. His dark brown hair was messy, wet with sweat. He was breathing hard, calling out to her. "Please, wait," he said, stumbling slightly on a root. "I'm not here to hurt you." The girl didn't stop. She had seen him fall from the sky, or at least that's how it felt. He had crashed through the barrier that protected her land, something no human had ever done. He wasn't supposed to be here. No human was. She reached a clearing, the sunlight soft and gold through the trees. The girl turned at last, lifting her hand. A soft glow sparked at her fingertips. "Go back," she warned. Her voice was firm, but her hands were shaking. "You don't belong here." The boy stopped just a few steps away, his chest rising and falling quickly. He didn't lift his weapon. In fact, he had dropped his sword somewhere along the way. Now, he only looked at her, really looked. "I don't know where I am," he said. "I was running from a battle. Everything went dark. Then, I woke up here." She studied him carefully. His armor was scratched and dirty, but he didn't look dangerous. He looked lost. "This is Eldera," she said slowly, "the land of the elves. Your kind was banished long ago." He blinked, confused. "Elves? I thought they were just stories." She lowered her hand, though the glow still danced on her fingertips. "We are not stories, and you are not safe here." He nodded. "I didn't mean to come. I didn't even know a place like this existed." For a long moment, they stood in silence. Birds chirped somewhere above them. A breeze moved the leaves, and the world felt strangely calm. "What is your name?" she asked. "Corwin," he said. "And you?" "Elira." She hesitated, then looked around. If any of the forest guards saw him, they would strike first and ask questions later. Still, something in his eyes made her pause. "Come with me," she said at last. "If the others find you alone, they won't listen. But maybe the Queen will." Corwin looked surprised. "The Queen?" Elira nodded. "You might have broken a law just by being here. But maybe, just maybe, she'll give you a chance." As they walked deeper into the glowing woods, neither of them knew that this was only the beginning of something much bigger than either of them could imagine. The walk to the Elven city was long and quiet. Corwin followed Elira through winding paths, his boots crunching softly on the mossy ground. The trees here were taller than any he had seen before, their leaves glowing faintly with magic. He felt like he had stepped into a dream. Elira didn't speak much. She moved quickly, always watching the shadows. Corwin noticed her ears, slightly pointed, and the way the forest seemed to part for her. Birds sang when she passed. Even the wind seemed to follow her steps. He was just a soldier. He didn't belong in a place like this. After some time, the trees opened into a hidden valley. Corwin stopped, his eyes wide. There, rising from the forest floor, was a city made of silver and crystal. Tall towers sparkled in the sunlight. Bridges floated without support, and waterfalls glowed with soft blue light. The air felt warm and alive. Elira turned to him. "This is Silverian, the heart of Eldera. No human has set foot here in hundreds of years." Corwin lowered his head. "I didn't mean to break your laws." "I know," she said quietly, "but that may not matter." As they entered the city, elves in fine robes and armor stopped to stare. Some whispered, others frowned. No one welcomed him. Elira led him to a large hall, its doors carved with symbols that shimmered like stars. 2 guards stood outside. They raised their spears when they saw Corwin. "He's with me," Elira said firmly. The guards looked at each other, then stepped aside. Inside, the hall was quiet. The walls glowed softly, and vines with silver flowers hung from the ceiling. At the far end sat a woman on a throne made of living wood. Her hair was silver white, flowing like water. Her eyes were sharp, calm, and full of power. "Queen Erilyn," Elira said, bowing. "This is Corwin, a human who crossed the barrier. He says it was not on purpose." The queen stood slowly. Her gaze settled on Corwin. "You speak the truth?" she asked. Her voice was strong but not unkind. Corwin nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty. I was in battle. Everything went black. I woke up in your forest. I don't know how." The queen walked closer. Corwin lowered his eyes, unsure of what to do. She circled him once, studying him. Then she spoke. "You are injured." Corwin looked down at his arm, where blood had dried around a cut. "It's nothing," he said. Erilyn raised her hand, and a soft light covered the wound. When it faded, the cut was gone. He looked up, stunned. "You are lucky Elira found you," the queen said. "Most would not be so kind." Elira said nothing, only stood straight. The queen turned to her. "Watch him. Keep him close. If he lies, you'll answer for him." Elira nodded once. Corwin felt a chill. He had been spared, for now, but he knew this place would not forgive him easily. Elira led Corwin to a quiet place at the edge of the city. It was a small house built into the roots of a great tree. Glowing mushrooms lit the path, and soft music floated in the air. The house was simple, but it felt peaceful. "You'll stay here," Elira said. "Don't leave without me." "Not yet." Corwin looked around. "You don't trust me." "I don't know you," she replied. "And the others, they won't protect you like the queen did." Inside the house, everything was neat. The bed was made of leaves and silk. There were books, strange tools, and a window that showed the forest outside. Corwin sat down with a sigh. "This place, it doesn't feel real." Elira stood near the door. "It's real, but it's not yours." He looked up at her. "Why did you help me?" She hesitated, then said, "You looked afraid. Not dangerous. Afraid." He gave a small smile. "I was. I still am." For the next few days, Corwin stayed close to the treehouse. He tried not to draw attention. Elves passed by, staring at him. Some whispered. A few children threw pebbles at him when Elira wasn't looking. He didn't fight back. He just sat by the stream or helped Elira with chores. Elira watched him. He wasn't like the humans from the stories. He didn't brag, didn't complain. He listened, and he asked questions. About the forest, the magic, the stars. One evening, they sat by a fire outside. Elira handed him a bowl of fruit. "What was your world like?" she asked. Corwin thought for a moment. "Loud, busy, full of war and worry. People forget to be kind." "Why were you fighting?" "For land. For power. I lost friends. I was just trying to survive." She nodded. "Elves fight too. Not like humans, but still, we protect what's ours." He looked into the fire. "I don't even know what's mine anymore." A quiet moment passed. The wind rustled the leaves above them. "Do you miss your home?" she asked. He shook his head slowly. "I don't think I ever had one." Elira didn't reply, but something in her expression softened. The next day, the queen called for Elira again. This time, the council joined her. They wore long robes and looked serious. "He cannot stay," one of them said. "He is human. They bring ruin." "He has done nothing wrong," Elira replied. "He is peaceful." Another council member frowned. "One peaceful man does not erase the past." Queen Erilyn raised her hand. "He stays for now, but he must prove he means no harm." "How?" Elira asked. The queen looked at Corwin. "He will live as we do. Work, learn, respect our ways. If he fails, he leaves." Corwin nodded. "I'll try." And so, the test began. Corwin woke early each day. The sun rose gently over Eldora, shining soft light through the trees. Birds sang songs he had never heard before. The air smelled of flowers and clean earth. Elira met him every morning by the stream. She gave him simple tasks: carry water, gather herbs, clean tools. At first, he moved awkwardly. His armor was heavy, and he didn't know how to use elven tools. But he didn't complain. He listened, watched, and tried again each time he failed. The elves nearby continued to watch him. Most were silent, cold. Some muttered under their breath. One old elf shook his head every time Corwin passed. "They don't want me here," Corwin said one afternoon, sitting by the garden. Elira knelt beside him, planting seeds. "They don't trust humans. Not after what happened long ago." "What did happen?" he asked. She paused. "A human came here once, like you. He was kind at first. The queen trusted him. Her voice faded. He betrayed her. He stole sacred magic. The forest still remembers." Corwin looked at his hands. "I won't do that." "You say that now. But fear changes people." He didn't argue. He just picked up the seeds and helped her plant the rest. In the evenings, they sat by the fire again. He told her stories of his world: crowded cities, metal machines, cold stone roads. She listened with wide eyes. "You had flying ships?" she asked once. "Not ships," he laughed. "But yes, things that fly. Loud and fast. They'd break the sky." "Sounds horrible," she said with a small smile. One night, as they sat together, a group of elf children ran past. One of them stopped and stared at Corwin. "Are you the human?" the child asked. Corwin nodded. "I am." The child looked at him for a moment, then handed him a small flower. "Mama says you don't talk like the old stories." Corwin smiled. "Thank you." The child ran off, laughing. Elira watched the moment quietly. Later that week, Elira brought Corwin to the edge of the forest. A huge beast was caught in a trap, its leg bleeding, its eyes wild with pain. "We heal or free all creatures," Elira said. "This is your task." Corwin moved slowly, speaking softly to the creature. It growled at first, but he didn't stop. He reached into the trap and opened it carefully. The beast limped away, but not before looking back at him. "You did well," Elira said. "I didn't want it to suffer," he replied. As they walked back, Elira said nothing. But inside, she felt something she didn't want to name. Corwin was changing. Or maybe he had never been the enemy they feared. Days passed, then weeks. The forest began to change its silence around Corwin. Birds no longer flew away when he walked by. Some elves nodded to him instead of turning away. The old elf who once shook his head now simply watched without speaking. Corwin worked hard. He helped the weavers spin thread from spider silk. He learned to cook with herbs that glowed in the dark. He cleaned the roots of the healing trees and carried heavy baskets for the elders. Elira watched everything. She saw how he never asked for rest, even when his hands were blistered. He listened closely when the druids taught him about magic, though he could not use it himself. He never tried to prove himself. He just lived simply, with quiet respect. One morning, Queen Erilyn called Elira to her chamber. The room was filled with soft light, and the air smelled like old magic. "The human has not broken our rules," the queen said. "No, my queen," Elira replied. "He follows them better than some of our own." Erilyn looked out the window, her silver hair shining. "You spend much time with him." Elira lowered her eyes. "I was ordered to watch him." "And now?" Elira hesitated. "Now, I want to." The queen said nothing for a moment. Then she spoke softly. "Once, I trusted a human. He made me believe in peace. Then he turned his back on it." "Corwin is not him," Elira said. "Perhaps not, but the forest remembers pain. And so do I." That evening, Elira and Corwin sat beside the river. Moonlight danced on the water. She handed him a bowl of warm soup. "You've changed since the day I found you," she said. "I don't feel like the same man," he replied. "Why did you come here, Corwin?" He looked at the stars. "I didn't mean to. I was running from death. But maybe something brought me here. Something I don't understand." She looked at him closely. "And now that you're here, I feel like I finally know what peace is. I don't want to lose it." A soft wind moved her hair. She didn't look away. "The Queen doesn't trust easily," she said. "She carries a broken heart." "I don't want to break anything," he said. "Not her trust. Not yours." For a long time, they just sat in silence, listening to the river. The next morning, as Corwin walked through the garden, a group of young elves asked him to teach them how to tie knots like human soldiers. He smiled and knelt down, showing them step by step. Elira watched from a distance, something warm rising in her chest. Maybe, she thought, the forest was beginning to forgive. Maybe her heart was too. Corwin was beginning to feel like he belonged, but he knew it wasn't the same for everyone. The elves still watched him closely. Some were kind, but most stayed distant, as though waiting for him to fail. Elira, however, had stopped watching him with suspicion. Now she often smiled when he succeeded at something new, and that made him feel proud. One day, Queen Erilyn called for him. She stood in the center of the palace courtyard, surrounded by golden trees. Her gaze was sharp, but there was something softer about her too, as though time had eased some of her old pain. "Corwin," she said, "you've proven yourself useful, but you are still a human. There is only so much trust that can be given." He nodded, not sure what to say. "I understand." "Good," she replied. "But there is a test now." "A test?" he asked, his heart suddenly racing. "You will go into the forest," she said, "deep into the heart of it. There is a creature who has been attacking our borders. It's not something we can deal with alone. You must help." Corwin's mind raced. "You want me to fight it?" The Queen looked at him for a long moment, her eyes unreadable. "No, we do not wish for bloodshed, but we do need help. If you are to stay, you must prove you can protect this land." He hesitated. He wasn't a warrior anymore. He had fought in wars before, but this was different. This was their home. "I'll do it," Corwin said, his voice steady despite the fear rising in his chest. Elira met him outside the palace as he prepared to leave. She had a bow and quiver slung over her shoulder. "Are you sure about this?" she asked quietly. "It's the only way," he said. "If I fail, I leave. But I won't. You don't have to do this alone," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I'm coming with you." He looked at her, surprised. "You don't need to. This is my test." Elira shook her head. "You can't face this alone. Not in their land. Not without me." He didn't argue. They walked together through the woods, deeper and deeper into the heart of Eldara, until the trees grew thick and dark. The air felt heavy, and the sounds of the forest seemed to vanish. After hours of walking, they reached a clearing where the trees seemed twisted and bent. Something felt wrong here. The earth was scared, the plants withered. "This is where it was last seen," Elira said, looking around. "Be careful." Suddenly, there was a rustle in the bushes. Before either of them could react, a massive shadow moved toward them, a creature unlike anything Corwin had ever seen. Its eyes glowed with an eerie yellow light, and its fur was matted with dark stains. Elira knocked an arrow to her bow, but Corwin stepped forward. "Wait." He didn't know why he said it, but something in him told him that violence wasn't the answer. The creature snarled, but it didn't attack. It watched him, its eyes full of confusion and anger. Corwin took a deep breath and slowly lowered his hand, hoping that somehow he could find a way to end this without bloodshed. Corwin stood still, his heart pounding in his chest. The creature's glowing eyes locked onto him, and its growl rumbled deep in its throat. It was bigger than anything he had ever seen, its fur matted with dirt, and its claws were like knives. But it didn't charge. It just watched him, as if unsure of what to do next. Elira stood behind him, her bow aimed, ready to shoot, but she didn't release the arrow. She, too, seemed to sense that this wasn't just another battle. "Don't," Corwin said softly, his voice steady. He took a slow step forward, careful not to startle the creature. "We don't have to fight." The creature's growl softened, but it still didn't move. Corwin took another step, closer now. He could see the deep gashes on its side, fresh and still bleeding. It was hurt. It wasn't just attacking for no reason. It was in pain. "It's scared," Corwin muttered, mostly to himself. Elira lowered her bows slightly. "What are you doing?" "It doesn't want to hurt us," Corwin said, inching closer. "It's hurting, Elira." "You can't just approach it like that," she said, her voice tense. "You don't know how dangerous it is." "I know," he said, "but we don't need to fight. If we can help it, we should." The creature shifted, its eyes still locked on Corwin. It took a step back, then another, but it wasn't running. It was waiting for something. Corwin reached into his pouch and pulled out a piece of cloth. It wasn't much, but it was clean. He dipped it into the stream nearby and returned slowly, kneeling before the creature. "I'm not going to hurt you," he whispered. "Just let me help." Elira watched him carefully, still unsure. But she didn't stop him. Corwin gently reached out, his hands trembling as he wiped away some of the blood from the creature's wound. The animal flinched at first, but didn't pull away. Corwin's voice was calm. "You're not alone. We can help you." He kept speaking softly, trying to calm it as he worked. His hands were careful, slow as he cleaned the wound. It wasn't much, but it was something. After a few minutes, the creature seemed to settle. It lowered its head, as if trusting him. Elira stepped forward, still cautious but amazed at what she was seeing. "You've calmed it." Corwin nodded, still tending to the wound. It just needed someone to show it kindness. After a few moments, the creature stood up. It no longer seemed as wild or desperate. Its eyes were softer now, less fearful. It looked at Corwin for a long moment before turning away, limping back into the forest. "Is it leaving?" Elira asked. "I think so," Corwin said. "We didn't have to kill it." Elira lowered her bow, her face filled with quiet wonder. "You did something none of us could have done." "I didn't do it alone," Corwin said, glancing at her. "You trusted me." Elira smiled, a rare, warm smile. "Maybe, just maybe, we're learning to trust each other." They stood in the clearing for a long time, watching the creature disappear into the trees. The silence felt different now, as if the forest itself had accepted Corwin. And in that moment, he felt, for the first time since he arrived, that maybe he could truly belong here. The next few days felt different. Corwin noticed the change in the way the elves looked at him. It was subtle, but it was there. More nods, more polite greetings, and fewer whispers behind his back. Even the children seemed less afraid of him, watching from a distance, but no longer running away. Elira continued to guide him through the daily tasks, teaching him more about the ways of the elves. The work was still hard, but now it felt meaningful. He learned how to weave the special threads used to make the elven cloth, and he helped harvest the fruits that only grew in the sacred groves. One evening, Corwin and Elira sat by the river, watching the sunset. The air was cool, and the soft murmur of the stream was the only sound around them. "Do you think the Queen will ever trust me fully?" Corwin asked quietly, his eyes still on the water. Elira hesitated before answering. "I think she wants to, but the past is heavy for her. For all of us." He nodded. "I can't change what happened before. I can only show her who I am now." Elira looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "And who are you now?" Corwin smiled softly. "Someone who wants to do better. Someone who wants to protect this place." She smiled back, a little shyly. "Maybe you're already doing that." The days continued, and Corwin became more a part of the elven world. He still wasn't fully accepted, but he was no longer an outsider. He spent more time with the younger elves, teaching them simple human games and showing them how to use tools that weren't magical but useful. In return, they taught him their songs, their dances, and stories of the ancient times. One morning, as Corwin was working in the fields, an elf approached him. The elf was older, his robes finely made, and his face set with a stern expression. "Corwin," the elf said, his voice deep, "I need to speak with you." Corwin paused, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Yes. The queen has heard of your actions in the forest," the elf said, "and there are others who think you should leave." Corwin's heart sank. "Why?" "There are many who still fear humans. They believe you are only here to bring harm." The elf's eyes were cold. "They do not trust you. They think it's only a matter of time before you turn on us." "But I've helped," Corwin said, trying to remain calm. "I've done nothing to hurt anyone." "Not yet," the elf replied. "But you are still a human. You are still an outsider." Corwin clenched his fists, but he kept his voice even. "If you truly believe that, then maybe you should get rid of me now. But I will not leave until I've proven that I'm not like the others." The elf studied him for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he nodded slightly. "We'll see." As the elf walked away, Corwin stood there, his mind racing. He knew it wouldn't be easy. The path he had chosen was still full of obstacles, but he wasn't about to give up. Not now. He had made it this far, and no matter how many doubted him, he would prove he belonged. The next few days were tense. Word spread quickly through the elves' village about Corwin's meeting with the elder, and some of the elves became even more distant. Corwin could feel the coldness in the air when he walked past them, the whispered conversations that stopped as soon as he entered a room. Even Illyra seemed quieter than usual, her gaze often focused on the ground. But he didn't let it shake him. He kept doing the work, kept showing up each day, even when it felt like his efforts weren't enough. Corwin worked harder than ever. He repaired the old walls that had been damaged by storms, carried heavy loads for the elders, and helped the children with their lessons. One evening, as he was walking along the edge of the forest, Corwin heard someone call his name. He turned and saw Illyra approaching, her face serious but not cold. "Corwin, the queen has summoned you," she said. "Summoned me? Why?" he asked, his heart racing. "She wishes to speak with you. I don't know why," Illyra replied. "But you should go. Don't keep her waiting." With a nod, Corwin followed her to the palace. The walk was silent, but he could feel the tension rising. As they reached the grand hall, Illyra stopped. "I'll wait for you here," she said quietly. "Good luck." Corwin nodded and entered the hall alone. The queen was standing by a large window, looking out over the forest. Her silver hair shone in the soft light, and her posture was regal, though there was something tired about her. "Corwin," she said, not turning to face him, "you've caused a stir among the people. Some support you, but others believe you will bring harm." "I didn't ask for any of this," Corwin said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I didn't come here to cause trouble. I came to help." The queen turned to face him now, her sharp eyes studying him. "You've helped, but can you prove that you're not like the others? That you don't have hidden intentions?" "I can't prove that to everyone," he said. "But I can show you. I can show the forest. If you give me a chance." Erilyn was silent for a moment, her gaze intense. Then, slowly, she spoke again. "There is a test, a final challenge, not just for you, but for the land itself." Corwin's heart skipped. "A test." "The forest has been restless," she said. "There is a dark magic rising deep within the woods. It threatens us all. If you can stop it, you will have proven that you are more than just a human. You will show us all that you are worthy of being here." "I'll do whatever it takes," Corwin said without hesitation. The queen nodded, her face unreadable. "Good. Then prepare yourself. The challenge will come soon." As Corwin left the palace, he felt the weight of the queen's words pressing on him. This was more than just a test of strength. It was a test of everything he had learned. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for a place in this world. For acceptance. Elira was waiting for him outside. She didn't ask questions, but she could see the seriousness in his eyes. "Are you ready?" she asked. "I will be," he said, and for the first time, he felt the weight of his decision settle firmly in his chest. He wasn't backing down. The next morning, Corwin prepared for the challenge. He had no idea what to expect, but he knew it would be dangerous. The Queen had made it clear that this would test not just his strength, but his character. Elira joined him as he packed his things, silently handing him a cloak for the journey. She didn't say much, but Corwin could see the concern in her eyes. "Do you think I'll make it?" Corwin asked, trying to lighten the mood. Elira gave a small smile. "You've come this far, haven't you?" He nodded, but he still felt the weight of what lay ahead. They left the village together, walking deep into the heart of the forest. The trees grew denser as they moved further in, the air thick with the scent of moss and earth. Corwin felt the uneasy silence all around him, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. "The magic is strongest here," Elira said quietly. "We must be careful." They moved carefully, keeping their eyes on the path ahead. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing, and Corwin could sense something was wrong. The air was colder here, and the trees seemed to lean in on themselves. The ground beneath their feet was soft and wet, like the land itself was sick. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient tree. Its bark was blackened and cracked, and a dark mist surrounded its roots. The air felt heavier here, and Corwin could almost hear whispers coming from the tree. "This is it," Elira said, her voice low. "This is what has been causing the disturbance." Corwin stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. He had no idea how to stop whatever dark magic was controlling the tree, but he knew he had to try. As he approached the tree, a voice echoed in his mind. "Leave now, human. This is not your fight." Corwin shook his head, trying to ignore the voice. "I can't leave," he muttered. "This is my fight now." The ground beneath him began to tremble, and the dark mist swirling around the tree grew thicker. Corwin drew his sword, his heart pounding. He could feel the power in the air, a force that seemed to be pushing back against him. Elira stepped forward, drawing her bow and nocking an arrow. "We can do this together." Together, they both moved closer to the tree. Corwin swung his sword at the mist, but it only seemed to grow stronger. Then the dark voice returned, louder this time. "You will fail, human. You do not belong here." "I belong," Corwin said firmly, his voice echoing through the clearing. "I belong with this land. I will protect it." He stepped closer to the tree, his sword raised high. With all his strength, he brought it down on the twisted bark. As it struck, the ground trembled violently, and the dark mist began to retreat. A bright light exploded from the tree, blinding Corwin and Elira. They both fell to the ground, shielding their eyes. When the light faded, the tree was no longer blackened. It stood tall and healthy, its bark glowing softly with an ancient magic. Corwin and Elira slowly stood up, their eyes wide. The forest had been saved. "You did it," Elira said, her voice filled with awe. Corwin looked at her, his heart pounding with relief. "We did it." The challenge was over. And with it, Corwin had finally proven himself, not just to the elves, but to himself. He had found his place, and he knew he would never leave.